What's up, you guys? My name is Wolf, and welcome back to LEGO Arts. So, in the last episode, we did part 2 of the RWBY Volume 7 showcase featuring Team Junior. So now this time, we're going to wrap that showcase up with part 3, featuring our last 3 minifigures for the showcase. Okay, so here we have Crow, Winter, and Penny. All of which were probably some of the easier ones to do. Like when making Penny, it was a little bit harder, and I'll explain that when I get to her. But with Crow and Winter, they were probably the easier ones out of all the other minifigures to do. Like these two, as well as Ren, they were the easier ones to do. Everyone else had their own challenges in their own way and forms. But after getting through all those challenges, reaching to this final conclusion of the showcase, I'm really proud of how it all came out. Now, so, as you guys know the whole drill, we're going to take these minifigures one at a time, do a review on them, explain my process, why I went with this route, and then go from there. So, without further ado, let's get the pedestal out and get the showcase on the road. Okay, so to start our showcase off is Crow. Now, this one was probably the easier figure to do out of all of these. Like, this one was probably the easiest one to do. So, like, one of the first things that I did with Crow was doing his torso decal. And admittedly, this was one of the trickier parts, because I spent about an hour trying to find, like, a good photo reference of Crow, of, like, Crow's outfit. And when I finally found one, I was able to figure out of, like, how do I take that and transfer it into Lego format. Then after doing that and printing it off, I glued it onto this torso. With the arms, I felt like that they were pretty easy to do, so I just hand-painted them. I know the little detailing pattern is not as accurate. I'm still practicing on detailing stuff, and also, it was very hard finding those angles of, like, Crow's sides, but I couldn't find anything on the back, and it's mainly because of the cape, which I'll get to the cape in a second. So, I was basically just going with my imagination on this one. But the arms were pretty easy to do compared to the other ones. After I finished that, the pants were just plain black, so that was easy as well. The face, some of you might recognize this, but for those of you who don't know, this was actually the same face that I used for my Wild Dog minifigure from my first Arrow showcase, like way early in the series. Since then, I no longer have that minifigure, as I don't watch Arrow anymore. But that is another discussion for another day. But basically, I kept the head in storage, because I figured that, like, I can use this eventually in the future. And when I found it again, I looked at it, and it kind of matches up with Crow's facial expressions. He doesn't really have this much of a goatee as, like, on here. But when really looking at the expression, I realized that, like, the way how it's made, I can actually use this for Crow. And this is probably the only RWBY minifigure that doesn't have the colored eyes. This one doesn't have the colored eyes, and it's mainly because, as you can see, the eyes are pretty small, and sometimes with the paint, just like with Jean, for instance, the paint was a bit too big, and even when doing the small white dot, it came out bigger than intended, so I didn't want to accidentally mess up the face in any way or form, because, like, when redoing that, it's really tedious and very much a pain in the ass. So I decided that, like, I'm just gonna keep it as it is, and it should be fine. This hairpiece, I decided to go ahead with this hairpiece, because it kind of matches up with, like, how Crow looks like on the show. And I think that, like, if Lego, like, ever did, like, a RWBY showcase, this would probably be, like, the hairpiece that they would choose. For, like, Crow. Plus, I had a whole bunch of these, and I need to get rid of them. Anyways, moving on to his weapon. I forgot what this thing is called. But it was kind of interesting to build. So what I did was similar of how I made Devil Sword Dante. I took like a rod piece, like the whole rod was intact. I then reversed it for where, like, on the bottom this represents, like, the end part of the blade, and then I coated the rest of this in molding clay. Then, like with the Dark Repulsor from SAO, I proceeded to chip some of the blade off, because it turned out I had made it a bit too big. So I cut off the blade, edges of the blade, and as well as the top part of the blade, and shrunk it down to the appropriate size. Then added in some of the other attachments, like these parts of, like, the little handle, this extension of the blade, some of the gear pieces that you can see of, like, the obvious paintwork that he did on both front and back. I don't know if there are gears on both sides. I was only able to find, like, one angle of the blade. So, again, I was just spitballing of how to proceed with that. I also added in some of the detailing on the blade, though I think adding in, like, all the detailing on this side was probably pointless because after putting on the final touches of paint on it, I realized that, like, okay, that was a bit of a waste of time. And I was originally going to go with, like, Sharpie for, like, the lines and then have, like, the rest of this detailing be acrylic marker. But then I realized that, like, the Sharpie would fade off, and that has happened in the past. So I didn't want to repeat that for this character. So I decided that, like, okay, this whole thing is going to be painted, and we'll be good to go. And then last up for Crow is his cape. As you can see, like, with this cape, this whole thing is completely custom. And actually my second attempt at doing a cape. So for those of you who don't know, back when I did the Mandalorian minifigure, quickly remove this. Back when I did the Mandalorian minifigure, it was my first attempt at a cape. And it was alright, but there were a couple of problems. For starters, of constantly, like, cutting off, like, backs of it. You can see this whole backside is blank, because, again, I couldn't find any photos of the back. But another problem was the hole size for the neck piece. I had accidentally cut it way too close to the edge. So now, without, like, either the jetpack or the whole head itself, the cape can easily come off. So since then, I learned from my mistakes. I was like, okay, so how can I fix this? How can I actually make it to where, like, I can put the cape on, and it will stay on without the neck. So what I did was I traced out the cape, then I added in the paint, and then afterwards I went back, traced out the holes, where the neck would be inserted in, and cut those out, added a little bit of tether to the cape, like you can see, like, a couple of these holes, as well as towards the bottom down here. This was a bit trickier to do, because in most of the pictures, the cape was kind of clumped together, so it's sort of limited of, like, the general idea of how to proceed through it. But for a second attempt, this is an improvement. This is so much better than what happened the first time around. So I'm gonna be trying this technique from now on, like, when I do custom capes. And all in all, this is a pretty interesting build to do. Like, the cape came out pretty well. The sword, you could see, like, small pieces of clay sticking out. Those were actually, like, small additions because I had accidentally sent in a bit too much for the blade, and you could see the rod. But the sword came out pretty nice. I think there's some articulation. Yeah, there's some articulation in the legs. And all in all, this was pretty simple to do. But in the end, the results came out pretty nice. Next up on our list is Intern. Now, but this character probably had the tougher decals out of all these characters to do. Because like with Crow, it was very hard of getting, like, good angles of her outfit, both front and back. And it was also a bit tricky to figure out, like, okay, how big do I need to make these parts? So, like, for starters, on the front, like this blue waist piece here, it was a bit tricky of figuring out, like, the size that I had to make it, and then taking that and converting it to Lego format, so that way all of this can match up very well, like, with the belts and everything. On the back, like, you can see the belts continue on with this, on the back, along with this, on this little, like, back pocket here. I'm probably gonna make that three-dimensional, but the thought that occurred to me at the time. On the back here with this back part on the top, this was actually done in Photoshop. So I took one look at this. So when looking at the photos, I took one look at this design, and I just immediately went, I will be able to make this in minifigure format. I will be able to draw this out, make it look nice. I'll make it look like it's chicken scratch. So what I decided to do instead was I took that photo, cropped it down, then photoshopped it onto the back of the decal, recolored it, so that way all the colors would match up, and this came out as final results. It did come out much better than down here, as well as like on the shoulders, because again, with that detailing work, I'm not very skilled at. And I probably could have done, like, decal base for, like, these sides, and for, like, the sides of the arms, and it would have come out a little bit better. The thought that occurred to me at the time, because I wanted to do, like, all of this hand painted, and then on the back, on the back, this is completely hand painted because I don't think it'd look good if I took like paper and then like tried to glue it on, onto fabric. And the fabric, I don't know how that would come out. So, like, maybe it'd come out fine. Maybe it'd look like a disaster. That'll probably be something I'd have to do in the future. But for now, the whole idea was just like, okay, I know what to do, so I'm gonna do it hand painted as best I can. And the hands are just like a regular blue. Same thing with the legs. The legs were pretty easy to do. I just had to like paint out like the way, like sort of like this outline for the boots, as well as the bottom part for the heels. Same thing with the rest of this arm. This arm like painted on this blue armband. Up here, she's carrying a regular katana, because when looking at her sword, it's pretty simple. It's like Weiss's, but where it's pretty simple. It is simple, but unlike with Weiss's, I didn't really get to do anything with this one. I know that there's like a front handle part here, but it's not really too big of a deal. Plus, I'm not sure if I'd be able to sculpt it and then make it out and then like make it big enough for where like I could stick the hand in here and not make it look like the hand is suddenly merging with the weapon. I think an alternative to do like if you wanted to make the character more accurate, I think an alternative would be like taking a pirate sword and using that. But I don't think I have any more of those swords. Like I think I got rid of those a long time ago. Anyways, with the rest of this figure, for instance, with the head, some of you were looking at his face piece and thinking, like, that face looks familiar. It's because it's the same face that I used for North from Detroit Become Human. Oh man. I decided to go ahead with this because I feel like it just fits Winter's expression very well. Like, if you've seen the show, most of the time her expression is pretty serious. Like, she takes her job very, very seriously. So I felt that, like, this expression would fit very well for this character. And then with the hairpiece, it's actually a modified hairpiece. Like, I bought a wild style hairpiece because I felt that, like, the overall design of the hairpiece was pretty accurate to how Winter looks on the show. I then proceeded to sand off and the little ponytail up top of here, mold some clay, and then sculpt it around for the bun piece, and it came out pretty well. So aside from like some of the obvious stuff that I could have done in the decal, like the arms, as well as a little bit on the waist to make it more accurate. Overall, this was not a terrible build. Like again, it could have come out a little bit better, but at the end of the day, with the final results, it's a pretty good representation of Winter, and I'd say overall, not too shabby. And last up on our list is Penny. Now, when I first saw that Penny was returning to Volume 7, I immediately was like, I have to do this as a minifigure. So after painstakingly looking at every angle that I could of the overall character design, I finally got an idea of what to do. So for starters, with the decals, as you can see, like she's got the green eyes. On the front, I only did one torso decal, so I did the front, and like you can see all the detailing here. I only did one because on the back it would have been covered up by the hair, so it would have been pointless to proceed through that. Plus, I couldn't find any photos of the back itself. The arms are just normal white arms. I painted the hands black and added in like these gold buttons. And I actually had to redo the right hand because the second button, it came out way too big, and like the third and fourth buttons just sort of merged together. So it was like one button and in a clump. So I repainted the hand and redid that, so it looks much better now. The skirt is made entirely of clay. It was actually the same technique that I did for Circus Baby from FNAF, but not quite as big. It is big. I then painted this in sort of like a grayish-greenish kind of color. I tried to match it up with sort of like the straps on the decal. It's not exactly the same color, but it's close enough. I also did this black outline and then this white outline underneath. I then went back and drew in all of the... I took a green marker and drew all these little lines. Some of them have merged together, unfortunately, but it does give an overall representation of the character's design. And same thing with these regular lines. I just took a Sharpie and drew all of those in. Luckily, with the paint, luckily with the paints like merging in with it, it won't fade off. I also added in like these small tiny buttons and your buttons up here. This was actually done like freehand instead of digitally. I decided to go with that just for the fun of it. The legs, unfortunately, like with the other characters, just because since the skirt covers up a majority of the legs, I couldn't add in all of the detailing onto here. But luckily there was enough room for me to at least add like an overall representation of the overall design. I didn't add any of her rocket boosters on her back legs because of these holes in the legs. I didn't want to put them like all the way down like as her heels. I didn't want to do that. So unfortunately I had to scrap that one. The hair and the bow, like with Weiss's hairpiece, Penny's I had to completely sculpt because there's no brick piece that comes remotely close to Penny's design. So I had to go and scratch on this one. So what I did was sort of the same technique that I did for Axel from Kingdom Hearts and Organization 13. And I first did the top part, I then took some strands of clay, wrapped, then like rolled them up, and then proceeded to glue them on like one at a time. I did try to clump them up, since her hair is kind of like in together mostly. It didn't fully come out correctly, but it still gives off the overall impression of what the hair design is supposed to be. You could see like I tried doing some detailing on the bangs. The bangs didn't fully come out correctly, but you could still see it at least. And then like this one strand of hair on the top, amazingly, this didn't collapse on itself, or it didn't fall off. Because that has happened in the past where I'll make like a strand of hair and then like it'll either fall off, or just break in and just collapse on itself. What I did instead was I glued it on and then immediately painted the whole thing in like this special acrylic orange that's designed to go on any surface. So this comes out very, very nicely. And then with the bow, I actually had to redo a couple of things with it. Like at first I thought the whole thing was pink, but then when double checking it, it was just like, oh wait, there's actually some more colors to it. So I painted up the inside of it black. And then I tried drawing in like her little logo, like her little power symbol, but it came out weird. So I tried to repair it as best I could. It's not the best, but I think it could have come out far worse this way. And you can't really see it too well, but there's also, but I also added in the power symbol on the front as well, because that's one of the traits with Penny. So, with the overall final results, the one thing that I didn't do with this, obviously, is the swords. And that's mainly because, like with Zaldin, there's too many of them, and I don't know how I would add these on to the character. Because Penny doesn't hold the swords, actually. They sort of like levitate behind her with like maybe she's controlling them with anti-gravity. I never fully understood like how it works. But the whole point, the point is because since there's so many blades, I don't know how I would like take all those weapons and then apply it onto this character. If I figure it out in the future, I'll probably go back and add those on. But for now, I just wanted to do like the whole base of the character, and overall, I'd say this came out pretty nice. Pretty nice for like a first attempt at Penny. If you want to see like further detailing like onto the decal, you could check it out on my DeviantArt page in the description below. Same thing with Crow and Winter's decals and all the other Team RWBY decals. Yes. So overall, let's get the rest of the characters out and then bring the showcase to a closing. And that does it for this episode of LEGO Arts, and that concludes the 3-parter of RWBY Volume 7 Showcase. So, now looking at all 11 of these characters, I have to say that this is probably not just one of my favorite showcases so far of 2020, but probably one of my favorite showcases overall as a whole, because each of these characters provided a challenge for me to really put my creativity to the test. Like adding in all like the 3D elements, recreating and creating like some of their weapons, modifying hair pieces, and overall just really putting my creativity to the next level with each of these characters, and overall, this turned out to be fantastic. fantastic. Like, when I first was approaching Volume 7 for a showcase, okay, so at first I just thought that, like, oh, maybe I should just do, like, the same thing that I did for my first RWBY showcase and just focus on Team RWBY. But then, as I looked more and more into it, I then realized that, like, I want to actually try more. I want to, like, try, like, maybe making, like, some of the other characters and turning them into minifigure formats. And with the final results, I am satisfied with overall of how this came out. I'm really proud of, like, how each of these figures came out. And overall, just had a really fun time. And plus, it gave me the opportunity, especially for Team RWBY, to take what I did from the first RWBY showcase, apply it for this one, and also learn from my mistakes. Like, learn what I did from the past, and then change it for the future. And overall, this turned out to be a fantastic showcase. So I am planning on going back to RWBY for the future. I'm currently having plans to doing 2 other RWBY showcases. I'm planning on doing Team Coffee, as well as a Salem showcase and her new outfits from the finale of Volume 7. Now, if you're wondering, what about some of the other characters from Volume 7? Like, what about Robin, or Penny's father, Maria? I maybe will do those characters depending on how they return in Volume 8. But as for other characters such as General Ironwood, the Aesops, even Jack Schnee, I'm not going to do any of them. I originally had plans to do at least Ironwood and the Aesops, but the way how Volume 7 ended, I'm not doing any of them. None of them whatsoever. Plus, the showcase took way too long to do, and I had to divide it up. I finally decided that, like, okay, as much as I have enjoyed the showcase, I need to move on to other projects. Speaking of which, I have finally finished Showdown Bandit Wave 2, so that is going to be the next episode of LEGO Arts. And then afterwards, we're going to begin construction on Umbrella Academy, as well as Bendy and the Dark Revival. I don't know when those are coming in, but afterwards, I'm going to get to those as soon as possible. Also, we're going to be doing the Kingdom Hearts 3 Critical Mode Reminded live streams very soon, either by the end of this week, or by next week. I got a couple of other stuff to do, and then after I finish the live streams for Remind, we're gonna do Ultimate on Spider-Man PS4. So I'm really looking forward to all of that, and yeah, overall that's gonna be it. So, if you guys would like to see more videos like this in the future, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. It really helps us. We've got less space, like our projects, or mainly have some fun. So, anywho, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, hit that like button, comment below what you think, share with your friends, subscribe to YouTube, follow me on Twitch. And here's a half of the road. Ow! Woo! Thank you guys, and I'll see you next time when the Ice Moon rises.